So this is a video to review skills 5 through 8 in Unit 1, and I'm going to do one or two examples within each of those skills to help get ready for our big skills quiz tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time to work them out and then compare your answers to mine. So let's start with skill 5. Okay, skill 5 was covering absolute value equations. Remember, with absolute value, there's a possibility of two solutions, right? So two possible solutions. So here's your example to practice with for absolute value equations. 4 plus 7 times the absolute value of 9n plus 5 equals 102. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video, give you a chance to work this out to find your two possible solutions, then I'll press play and we can compare our work. Okay, so here's my work for this problem. Notice that my very first step right here is to get rid of that constant, the 4, by subtracting. My second step is to get rid of the 7, that multiplier, through division. And then I'm splitting it into those two separate equations, one with the positive 14 and one with the negative 14, and I solve to get my two solutions of positive 1 and negative 19/9. Okay, and if you wanted to rewrite this as negative, let's see, that would be 2 and 1/9, that would be fine, or that's also equal to negative 2.1 repeating. So either of those answers would be fine. Okay, let's go ahead and look at skill 6. Okay, skill 6 was on solving inequalities. This is where we first started working with our less than and greater than signs, and this is just one inequality symbol, not the compound. Let's do this as our example, and I do want the number line at the end as well. Negative 84 is greater than 4x minus 4 times 1 minus 3x. Okay, so I'd like you to both solve and graph. So I'd like to also see the number line at the end. So again, I'm going to pause the video and then we'll compare our answers in a few moments. Okay, and here's our answer to this inequality. I get x is less than negative 5. And notice that I did show down here on the bottom that you could flip it around, right? Even if you solve for x on the right side, you could always flip it around and you still get x is less than negative 5. Notice that my graph is shaded left and I have an open circle. Okay, remember at the top I wanted to check in again with that negative that you're multiplying by. So you're multiplying by the negative 4 when you distribute. So next we're going to look at skill 7. And this was solving compound inequalities, where we had the ands or the ors. So I'll write that here. either the and or the or. And we'll just do one of those as an example with the graph. So here's an example of an or. 3 plus 4r is greater than or equal to negative 17, or 1 minus 6r is greater than or equal to 43. Okay, and your directions are to solve and graph. So take a few moments to complete this problem, and then I'll play again and show you the answer to compare. All right, so here's my worked out solution for this compound inequality. I just solved the two inequalities separately. On the left, I got r is greater than or equal to negative 5. On the right, I solved and got r is less than or equal to negative 7. Notice that final inequality symbol flipped when I divided by that negative 6. Okay, notice also I brought down the word or in between. That is the connector word for these two pieces. This as a whole, kind of like a sentence, is the answer. Okay, so make sure to have that connector word in the middle, that or. And notice here the graph that goes with it. We don't need to have any overlap with an or, so it's okay that these two intervals go away from each other to positive infinity and to negative infinity. Okay, and finally, oops, hold up. Okay, skill 8. This is our most recent absolute value inequalities. So this is what we've been working on the last few days. Okay, these can also be ands or ors. We also get two parts of the answer, which makes them kind of compound inequalities as well. So hopefully these are pretty fresh in our memory. Let's go ahead and do one and one or to practice. Okay, so I'll do an and I'll do an or. And hopefully you kind of know the difference in what to look for in the two. Okay, so I'll keep these separate. So on the and side, we have 6 plus the absolute value of 9 minus a is less than or equal to 10. And on the or side, we have 6 times the absolute value of negative 5m plus 1, and then a plus 3 on the outside is greater than 99. Okay, your directions are to solve and give me that number line graph. Okay, so for the last time here, I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to give you a chance to work out both of these, and then you can compare your work. Okay, there's a lot of work crammed onto one screen here, but check one problem at a time. Notice that on the left, we do have a less than sign after we get the absolute value by itself, so that is why it's an and. I went ahead and wrote that negative 4 side here when I wrote it as that compound inequality and solved for a. In that last step, I did divide by a negative, So I had to flip the signs. And so for my final answer that I circled in red, I just flipped the whole thing around again, just so I could see the smaller 5 on the left and the larger 13 on the right. And that made the number line pretty simple to make at that point. So we're shading everything between 5 and 13. Now the OR problem, it had 2 steps at the beginning. We had to subtract 3 and divide by 6. And because we're left with that greater than symbol after the absolute value signs, it is an OR. So I split this into 2 separate problems with that connector word OR in the middle. I solved each side separately. Both involved dividing by that -5 at the end, so I had to flip those signs again. I got m is greater than 17/5, which is 3.4 or 3 2/5, or m could be less than -3. And I have both of those intervals represented on my number line. The big thing to remember with solving an OR, maybe you'll notice it right here, when I rewrote those 2 pieces, notice that the one on the right here looks exactly like the original, and then on the left, I flipped the sign and made the 16 negative. That's the only thing that really changes as you separate those 2 and solve. Okay, so that's your review of skills 5 through 8 for tomorrow's Skill Quiz Day.